Welcome, eCom Logistics Nation. Thank you for joining today's episode. We're on a mission to share e-commerce logistics insights, trends, successes, and challenges from the leaders and innovators in our space.
The biggest lie the devil ever told, 2-day delivery. It's never about that. It's about managing your customers' expectations. And also the vertical of what you're selling. Yes, if you're selling a consumable and it's a commodity and you can get it around the corner at a Walgreens, maybe speed matters.
Welcome to the eCom Logistics Podcast. We are remote once again at Shop Talk and excited to be joined today by Patrick, CTO of Shippo, and Nima, Head of Business Development at Shippo. Excited to have a conversation about all things logistics. And as a way of getting started, would love for you guys to share a little bit about your background. Patrick, would you like to start?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. My name is Patrick Nikoletich. I'm the CTO at Shippo. I lead all of research and development, which includes product design and engineering for the company. My background is a bit of a generalist. So I spent time in startups, spent time at Microsoft for a while, really enjoy all aspects of engineering and product development as well. And so I get that opportunity at Shippo more than anything, which is fantastic.
Amazing.
Hi, folks. I'm Nima. On most days, I play guru to his DJ Premier. I'm responsible for new business development at Shippo. I've been in eCom for 15-ish years. Been incredibly fortunate to be with Shippo from almost day zero to see all the maturation that the business has gone through and the various types of customers that we've served throughout the years, and beyond excited for actually what's ahead of us. And thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have both of them. They bring this very unique perspective, right? Like talking to Patrick on the product side, like what innovation in shipping looks like. We should be talking to Shippo about it. And Nima, he spoke about business development, but there is a lot of other stuff that my dude does, right? I want to talk about some of the VC stuff with him because he plays a little bit on that front as well.
Spent a little time on the dark side.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Well, I think, Nima, we're going to start with a question for you. And, we work with a lot of mid-market brands. We work with a lot of 3PLs. And if you think of the cost of an order going from a fulfillment center to the consumer and all the rolled up expenses, picking it, packing, the corrugate, warehousing the product, 70% of that cost is generally logistics, yes. Right? It's a transportation spend. 30% of the cost is generally that warehousing, pick, pack, as I mentioned before. So, given how important it is just from a cost perspective and the importance it is from that customer experience perspective, when an e-commerce organization or a 3PL is looking for the right type of logistic partners, any thoughts, advice on how to start that strategy and what they should be looking for and thinking about?
It's a great question. And it's a question we get asked all the time. Fundamentally, the service we provide is infrastructure. And so the question for platforms or 3PL or any warehouse shipper is you're considering someone to be your infrastructure. It's not a decision you make every third Tuesday.
Exactly.
So it's not a light decision. More often than not, these large organizations, they're making these decisions maybe once every 7 to 15 years.
Yeah.
And this is where we see a lot of, legacy players who've just been entrenched. As much as maybe some of us tech forward folks don't like it, you come for the integration and you stay for the switching costs because It's too expensive to rip something out. But in reality, things are breaking down. So when you are picking a new partner, I think it's important to really vet them to understand, are they enterprise ready? And what that enterprise readiness means for your organization. If you're a 3PL and you serve customers who ship 5,000 orders a month versus customers that ship 150,000 orders a month, that's a very different structure. Even to support that customer is a different structure. You're probably single tenant now. You're not in a network model. You're going to have an account manager for every single customer shipping 150,000, 1 million orders a month. It's a very different type of operation. That customer has wholesale business. They're not just eCom. eCom might just be 10, 15, 20% of their business, even if it's growing at 30% clip. So the decisions go across the board. Then there's the technical stuff that, Patrick always rightfully sweats about and how we can be better, which is how do you bring down latency? how do you bring down, or how do you increase reliability? How do you rely less on external factors to be able to go about your business? I mean, I've had, VPs or SVPs of product who've told me, even 500 milliseconds of latency in the warehouse makes a difference when you're fulfilling for.
Absolutely.
Share your story.
Yeah, you know this.
We
Greenwood, Indiana.
Yeah, there was. I'll tell you a scenario where we had to add an entire recirculation conveyor because just the amount of time it was taken to generate a label. Capital investment, real hard dollars,
Yeah.
because I needed the label to be out in 6 seconds. And again, it's not just the TMS that had to make the
Yes.
decision. The WMS now needs to interact, and the print and apply machine needs to apply the label, right? Just for us to be able to buy all the contingency, we ended up adding, how many feet of conveyor was it then?
I mean, we had to do a whole wraparound. I mean, it was probably close to 80 feet.
Just to get label on time.
Yeah. And I mean, those are the things that we really obsess about. And then when you talk about technology and how it intersects with the comments that Nima is sharing, our aspirationally, there will always be limitations with cloud solutions.
Absolutely.
As we continue to see more advancements with 3PLs and customers in that segment, there are a slew of things that we're thinking about putting on the roadmap to really address that as one of the core pain points, right? Getting that latency down as much as possible requires, edge solutions, hybrid solutions with the cloud, and it allows you to get the flexibility of scale, which is always important.
Absolutely.
But in order to service customers, in the way that they really need to be serviced at the volumes that we think about, we really need to really understand the types of hybrid solutions that will close that gap much more rapidly than we even do today as Shippo.
Absolutely. I mean, and as you guys said, right, like very well said, starting from simple solutions, right? I just need a couple labels.
Yep.
Yeah.
To going into highly complex warehouses, and you touched on edge, right? This is an ongoing raging debate in this industry still, right? Like can
Every
cloud,
industry rages.
Exactly, right?
Rages that debate, yes.
And specifically, and I'm not seeing a lot of edge solutions at this point, and I hope to see more of those kind of start popping up. I'm guessing innovation's your key, so you're probably working on something similar.
I mean, it starts with the customer's pain point, right? At the end of the day, I truly believe in not building shiny toys because they're shiny, and I'm like, look at how fast I am, but it has no value to the workflow and the meaning to the customer itself. And so really from Shippo's perspective, we spent so much time in the cloud, over the last 8-9 years that we've been really developing it. We're maturing beyond just the smaller customers, right? And we have a higher blend than we've ever had. How you accommodate their needs, how you think about the flexibility that they require. I mean, edge solutions is really complicated, right? You're talking about putting a physical device in somebody's warehouse or facility, whatever it might be. You're talking about connecting that to the cloud, all of the things that have to happen in between those two interfaces. While it's definitely maintainable, and you will see it with really, really large enterprises as an example,
right?
There's this big middle ground where people are growing and scaling, and they need these types of solutions. And even in my background, I haven't seen it too often in anybody below, Fortune 1000, that type of scale for the most part. Yeah.
And also the Fortune 1000, I would also say, their needs are not just label generation, right?
Yes.
Like there is this contract balancing, volume balancing, right?
Exactly.
Performance, it's not always about the cheapest, right? Like it's also about managing SLA or looking backwards to say, how was the performance on a given day for a given carrier? There is so many decisions, and I can tell you, even in the Fortune 1000, most of it looks pretty archaic, my friend.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I came to shipping. I think there's a wealth of opportunity to modernize the industry. And if you look across other sectors that have done it successfully, I think shipping is just right for a refinement that hasn't been seen before in the past.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Patrick and Nima, I am very excited to start a new line of conversation with you because you have such great insight, data, tons of conversations you're having with the market. And when we start talking to maybe startups or new brands, I think everyone initially thinks they have to start with an Amazon-like delivery experience. So they have to have this, purchase to delivery in 2 days or less, even if they're just launching. So all of a sudden they're adding this complexity to their supply chain. They're convinced they have to be in 3-4 nodes across the United States. And we've also worked with some very high growth brands that took a really hard look at their customers and their LTV. And one in particular, so long as the product was delivered by day 8 of purchase, no effect to LTV, no negative effect. So would love your perspective for what you're seeing in the market today. And I think we've all been, everyone's been chasing this 2-day Amazon Prime-like experience, but is it actually required? Would love your perspective and thoughts on that, unfiltered.
I'm glad this is on video right now. This is amazing.
You just push this button right squarely. So.
I can see it.
The biggest lie the devil ever told, 2-day delivery. It's never about that. It's about managing your customers' expectations. And also the vertical of what you're selling. Yes, if you're selling a consumable and it's a commodity and you can get it around the corner at a Walgreens, maybe speed matters. How often do I need a pair of leather shoes, hand-sewn Cordovan, in 2 days? How often do you need a sweatshirt in 2 days? Like if you really needed it, you just go to the store. You wouldn't wait 2 days.
Dude, we just saw, we spoke to someone last week about Shein. People are okay with 3-week delivery windows.
My kids
man.
are.
Like,
Yeah.
Right? Like,
They spend $50 to get free shipping and they wait a month and they're okay with it.
And to your point, where you did the analysis for the brand, that 8-day delivery had no effect.
No effect on LTV.
On LTV. And at the end of the day, we're, nobody's nonprofit. We're there for the LTV.
That's right.
If it doesn't affect the LTV, it says so much more about you managing your customers' expectations. Now, the secondary layer to that is optionality matters. So if you want to offer an expedited service and a standard service and an overnight service, fabulous. Now you're giving your customer optionality. Do all of those need to be free? I don't believe so. I mean, the biggest brands in the world, I think Nike has probably figured out checkout. I think we can all agree on that.
yes.
They don't offer overnight for free.
Right.
There's a reason.
Yeah.
They're in the business of making money. They offer it as an option to you, but you're going to pay for it. Now, Nike also has the SKU level margins
Yes.
to be able to offer the more standard shipping for free. SKU level margins is a topic we don't get into enough. Startups don't get into enough. The headlines are shiny, so everyone says, oh, 2-day free, and we all just stop there. We don't say, okay, but hold on. You have 10 SKUs. One of your SKUs you have 200% margin on. Maybe you can do things there, but the other one,
Right.
you only have 30% margin on. Maybe you shouldn't even be selling it at 30% margin. Sorry, conversation. Definitely do not do free shipping on that one.
Nope.
Love it. Love it.
So I think that nuance, we definitely do entrepreneurs a disservice by this narrative of, oh, everything is easy. You can set up a store easy. You can get your stuff from Alibaba easy. You can do shipping easy. But first of all, none of it is easy. Like no one's getting drunk on a Friday night and deciding that they're going to, launch a, some people do.
I don't know.
I have tried. Didn't work.
And that's you. You actually know what you're doing.
Dude, and it's hard. I have a lot of respect for these brands. Sorry to go on a tangent, but the amount of effort it takes to start a brand,
100%.
Yeah.
it's no joke,
100%.
man.
No.
Like, and we've gone through it. Like, we've tried it. And the amount of research, people think like you can get access to Jungle Scout or something and figure out what product you want to purchase from, or sell on Amazon as an example. Dude, the sourcing and how noisy the market happens to be, the quality, the procurement process, going through, like if you're in apparel, like working with the factories and wherever in India or Bangladesh, dude.
I made a hoodie from the ground up, sourced the merino wool from New Zealand, zippers from a factory in LA, another zipper from Alibaba, 2 different kinds of lining to find the designer to make it. Shout out to him. He also makes Janelle Monáe's costumes.
Ooh.
Small plug.
There we go.
All of that took me more than a year and a half. I had to sample more than 200 different fabrics. It's all non-trivial. It's all hard work. And in apparel, especially, there is no such thing as small batch.
Yes.
Right.
There is no such thing as small batch. And then if you're doing the thing where you're buying off of Oberlo or Alibaba, like you can't, you're not going to sell the same $25 hoodie with a screen print and a direct-to-garment embroidering for like $8 billion. So optionality. To answer your question.
Fantastic.
I'm gonna switch gears a little bit.
Do it up.
I want to ask this to both of you, but Nima, I know you work on the VC side of the universe. Money ain't cheap anymore.
It's a beautiful
This
thing.
entire series or this conference, the conversation that I've had with SaaS companies right now and brands right now is essentially the chickens have come home to roost, right?
Yum.
Yum, yum,
Yeah.
right?
I love everything about it.
Exactly. And so it is starting to, or not, the dynamics have definitely changed. What would, what's your perspective on how should companies, brands, anyone that's using, capital from the market be doing at this point, right? Like you can't just have the burn rate that you did before. Things are changing.
I think one, from a competitive standpoint, we're already seeing it. You're seeing it. A lot of the copycats and Me Too's will go away because capital is not, like, you can't continue to sell a buck for 27 cents.
Yeah.
Right.
So those companies that already had strong unit economics are doubling down on it and focusing more. If you're looking to raise, it really depends on the stage and it shows up in the data. I think if you're a pedigreed founder and you're pre-seed or seed, you probably have a good opportunity to raise.
True.
Valuations are different now than it was a year ago.
Yep.
Such as life. Everything goes in the private markets. You talk to 10, 20 VCs, you'll know what the price in the market is. I think things get much harder when you get to Series A and B and C and D. Like once you're, at Series A, an investor is looking at us saying, is this going to be a venture scale business?
Yep.
Meaning, are they going to be able to IPO in 7 to 10 years at, $200-300 million in net revenues? So the bar is definitely higher and tougher to go by.
Yep.
And, we're seeing venture portfolios impacted, especially the prior vintages. I think it just forces the entire ecosystem, entrepreneurs and investors, to take a much harder look at, is this another UI?
Yep.
Or is there underlying technology that solves customer pain points?
And in our space specifically, there is a lot of that. It's the UI,
It's a lot of skinning.
right? I mean, I don't want to name names on the podcast definitely at this
Oh, yeah,
point, but
we have a list for it. We'll
yes,
compare notes
I know,
afterwards.
after, right? There is a lot of skinning that's going on, a lot of UI that's going on. And it's like, but what about the base fundamentals of logistics?
Yeah.
Let's focus on that because that's what, hyper focus on, quality, hyper focus on operational excellence, right? Like those are the missing factors. And you got the wow factor. Other than that, it's like, look, I got a dashboard that's got like these pretty bars and graphs and charts. And it's like, yeah, enough of that. Like, how do you actually execute the task is what's important.
100%.
So
The exciting part, though, is whenever this sort of environment goes away, I do think the best actually show their faces.
yes.
So we are seeing incredible founders, incredible entrepreneurs actually focus on real value to the customer. And those people are shining. I just found out from a friend today, an entrepreneur I've admired for a long time. She just raised a super strong round.
Amazing.
But, she's also building something real.
So,
She's not selling a buck for 27 cents. So I think we'll see another class of entrepreneur where maybe in the last 8 years or 10 years, their voices would have been a little muddled by the noise from maybe shinier or people with decks that had bigger ambition theater pasted on it. And we're getting away from that ambition theater.
And a lot of that got done because of some of the investors that had no business being in the space without having the background.
Tourists.
Yes. But they got the big portfolios, right? Like coming in. And it's like, if you don't have a proper supply chain practice or a logistics practice within the VC firm, and here's the other thing that they did, right? Like they actually drove the valuations much higher
100%.
for the other VCs that actually know their stuff, not to be able to come into the round.
The
So,
discipline got lost, right?
Yeah.
I mean, part of everyone playing their position, I'm a big, what I would say, football fan, soccer fan. Knowing your position is important. The rest of the world calls it what it does. So here we are, being controversial. There's a real, genuine value that pre-seed and seed investors bring to the ecosystem. There's a real genuine value that Series A, B, and C investors bring to the ecosystem. Historically, we have had funds that go up and down the stack, but they also had discipline.
Mm-hmm.
That discipline got lost because when you raise $1 billion fund, you're not that's not venture anymore. It's not the traditional venture anymore.
Exactly.
$1 billion fund needs to return $3 billion supposedly in 10 years. Let's say their end-of-day ownership is 10%. That means on aggregate, they need $30 billion in enterprise value at time of liquidity. How many $30 billion companies get generated every 10 years? So that's one firm. I'm talking about one venture fund at $1 billion, right? So like you raise $1 billion, you need to return $3 billion to your LPs. Let's say you own 10% at the end of the day. That's $30 billion in enterprise value at time of liquidity. That's the venture math.
Yes.
But if you got a $20 million fund, it's a different game.
I say that $20 to $100 million game. That's where the party's at.
Yeah, like that.
That's where the party's at.
Anyway, sorry.
No, dude, thank you so much, man. That was mind-boggling, as you always do. I love talking to this guy. Now I have a question for you.
Sure, let's do it.
As far as innovation in our space is concerned, there has definitely been a lot of chatter. I brought up blockchain on a podcast yesterday as an example, right? I basically completely disavow, right, blockchain. I don't think it's got any real kind of practical use as far as our solution. There are some that I'm hearing about, right? Like I heard about this one where it's like a bill of lading type of solution that, custody of control as bill of lading kind of moves forward. But AI and ML, right? It's here now. Generative AI is here now. As you think about shipping, speed optimization, like what are the practical applications? What excites you?
Yeah, no, it's a great question because it's something we talk about a lot inside of Shippo. Obviously, large language models are all the rage these days.
Amazing.
It's truly amazing how fast they've accelerated over the last few years, and the number of applications, not just that things like ChatGPT support foundationally, but the number of offshoots of businesses on top is truly just absolutely amazing. It's a whole new ecosystem. You look at the amount of funding going into those companies, the new opportunities that are being created, it's substantial. And it's actually real, right? Yeah. Like in the crypto side, there was a lot of hope and anticipation. There was a lot of ideas. There was a lot of reinventing the wheel going on. Still today, given the just massive amount of money that was invested in the space, the output of it in general is rather low, right? Like think about how it intersects with people's lives on a daily basis. It never approached kind of the bar it was trying to actually hit, right? But then you look at AI and ML applications, and the thing to realize is they've been invading everyone's lives for many, many years, right? The promise of where we want them to get to, we're still far away from. And really the thing that you have to recognize is that, 85, 90% of ideas centered around AI and ML applications will probably fail. Like they won't return any meaningful value. They won't be used as something standalone that can drive growth and revenue for your business. But really the power is in how they augment capabilities, right? The aspect that they can change your life and make it more productive, make your experiences more frictionless. That to me is always the more interesting side, right? Because you're looking at your core business, you're bringing in technologies and solutions that help people be more productive. And to me, that's been one of those core tenets of just good business in general, right? So it's so spiritually, intrinsically aligned with where everyone wants to go. It's amazing. It's beautiful. But back to your main question, right? How does it actually fit into our space?
Exactly.
Large language models, are really challenging for core shipping infra, right? Because it's not a typical use case. But there are these random things that we think about, and there are actually things that we are doing internally at Shippo. One example is we have a large multi-carrier network. Many capabilities, many types of integrations. You would be surprised how hard it is to keep all of that information in all of our brains inside of the company. And you would be surprised at how many times we're asking in our standard channels at work, which carriers in Europe support returns? Like these fundamental, very basic questions, right? And if they were by themselves, we could answer them no problem. But when then you interweave that with a matrix of 80 different carriers, and you look at, like, for example, we have this one spreadsheet with like literally 300 columns, and it's just like nobody's going to remember this thing. And so what my team has been working on internally is, can we structure the information? Can we educate ChatGPT? And can we use that as a tool internally to be able to answer openly and honestly to customers and ourselves what our capabilities are, so we never have to answer the question ourselves again?
See, that's why I know you guys are a Google shop, a G Suite shop. Need to move to Microsoft, because Microsoft just launched Copilot. You wouldn't have to build it because it does exactly that.
Oh, you don't have to tell me. So I came from Microsoft, right? And the funny thing is, I went to this startup, and obviously G Suite, and I'm just like, everyone's like G Suite for startups. I'm like, we are living in the past. There are so many capabilities in the interconnected world that is Microsoft Office, that I think it's not about who makes the tool, right? It's about the tool that gets the job done fastest. And there's things that make me feel like I'm living in the dark ages.
It almost feels like it is cool to bash in the the tech startup space. It's cool to bash Microsoft for some reason. It's like Zoom's cool. This is cool, right?
Exactly.
Like versus Microsoft's core solution is so unified, so solid.
It's beautiful.
Is it the best video tool? No, it's not, right? Like when it comes to Teams. But is it the best unified communication tool? Absolutely.
Productivity wise, I would put it up against anything. I mean, I could rant about all those things all day long. I mean, it's not about the brand loyalty, right? It's just about productivity at the end of the day. And so set aside your personal loyalties whatsoever. The companies that can really put their customers first, put speed first, it will dominate at the end of the day. I mean, there are other areas, right? Like, so large language models are a little bit shifted more towards the AI side of the AI and ML spectrum. Internally, as an example, we're obsessed about many things, right? Like multi-carrier infrastructure, lots of complexity in terms of carriers have their own limitations. Carriers have their own performance problems. Carriers have their own availability and throughput problems. We actually have built models internally to do things like predictive rates, as an example. So for carriers that don't allow us to calculate rates locally, to deal with offline label generation, those types of things, we're looking to supplement those gaps and those kind of deficiencies in what they can support with technology that's able to predict accurately those kinds of costs in a manner that allows us to get throughput as high as possible on our network.
That's amazing. We could talk about it all day long. I think we will.
So maybe in closing, Nima, if you'd like to share, how could people learn more about Shippo, where they could follow you guys on social, and learn more, reach out to you.
Nima at goshippo.com. Always happy to connect with folks in the industry. Otherwise, our website is goshippo.com, at Shippo on Twitter. Yeah, give us a shout.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you guys very much. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
This is wonderful.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to maximize your supply chain. Available on all major podcasting channels. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next episode.